The Tories, who ruled from 1895 to 1905, adopted a policy of killing Home Rule with kindness, undermining national support by addressing Ireland's social and economic ills. Their Land Acts encouraged landlords to sell and tenants to buy their farms. However, the 2 decades following the death of Parnell are remembered more for the cultural revival than as a period of significant political action, though, as we shall see, the various revival groups also had a serious political undercurrent. The leaders of the revival regarded the development of Irish culture as a fundamental step towards what Douglas Hyde described as the necessity of de-Anglicising Ireland. The Gaelic Athletic Association, or GAA, a largely rural and anti-English body formed to encourage the growth of Gaelic games, was a breeding ground for militant nationalists. The Gaelic League, founded by Hyde and Eoin MacNeill, determined to revive Irish as a spoken language as well as championing Irish literature, music and dance. The literary revival was led by Hyde and W.B. Yeats, members of the Protestant ascendancy who formed the Irish National Literary Society to revive and preserve Irish culture. The reality of the revival is that it was mainly of interest to the upper and middle classes, as the peasantry were more concerned with the essentials of survival than with cultural issues. However, the revival did attract a group of Republican intellectuals led by Pádraic Pearse, who realised its political potential. Pearse, a poet, schoolmaster and future member of the IRB, was editor of the League's On Clive Solace. Another writer, also a League activist who would play a major role in the shaping of Ireland's future, was Arthur Griffith, editor of the United Irishman paper and founder of Sinn Féin. Irish trade unionism also produced important contributors to future events. James Larkin, founder of the Irish Transport and General Workers Union, and James Connolly, socialist author and, with Larkin, founder of Ireland's Labour Party. Connolly also founded the Irish Citizen Army. In the world of constitutional politics, the revived IPP under the leadership of John Redmond won 82 seats in Westminster, giving them the balance of power. Following Parnell's example, Redmond supported the Liberals in return for another Home Rule Bill. This prompted Ulster Unionists to draw up their solemn league and covenant against Home Rule, which many signed in blood. From their ranks was formed the 100,000-strong Ulster Volunteer Force to uphold Randolph Churchill's pledge that Ulster will fight and Ulster will be right. In Dublin, a huge public meeting expressed anxiety that the Crown authorities had turned a blind eye to this illegal force, and in response founded the Irish Volunteers. The IRB, who had seemed to be dormant since the heyday of Fenian activity, had in their constitution the principle that they should support every movement which could advance the cause of Irish independence. The Fenian leader Tom Clarke, who had begun to plan a new rising, now proceeded to organise infiltration of the revival committees, while operating on such a secret level that it was generally believed that the IRB had ceased to exist. When Redmond called on the volunteers to join the British Army to defend small nations against Germany, the volunteers split, with over 50,000 joining the British Army by the outbreak of World War I. With Home Rule set to become law in September 1914, war between the Ulster and the Irish Volunteers looked likely, but declaration of European war in August brought agreement with the Unionists and the IPP to suspend Home Rule. The Great War was particularly notable for the widespread use of mechanical and scientific weapons such as tanks, machine guns, mustard gas, etc. Automated killing brought new levels of slaughter to this war, of a type previously unimagined, and claimed the lives of some 25,000 Irishmen. Those volunteers who rejected British enlistment retained the name of the Irish Volunteers. Ostensibly under the leadership of Eoin MacNeill, they were essentially controlled by the IRB, who gained a majority on the General Council. These included Pearse, Joe Plunkett and Thomas MacDonagh, who together with Clarke and Eamon Cant were also the military council of the IRB. At the funeral of O'Donovan Rossa, Pearse's oration included the warning, "The fools, they have left us our Fenian dead, and while Ireland holds these graves, Ireland unfree can never be at peace." MacNeill began to suspect preparations for a rebellion about which he had not been consulted. He was finally informed of the insurrection planned for Easter 1916, but the failed German arms landing set him in such a panic that he placed a notice in the Sunday Independent cancelling that day's manoeuvres. Clarke responded by sending messages to all concerned to ignore MacNeill's cancellation and rescheduling the rising to commence on the morning of Easter Monday. Sadly, the resulting confusion meant that practically the only action was in Dublin. On Easter Monday, the rebels occupied the General Post Office, read a stirring proclamation and declared the IRB Military Council a provisional government of the Irish Republic. Unfortunately, only 1,000 turned out for the rising, which lasted just 6 days before indiscriminate bombing of the city centre by British gunboats forced an early surrender. The British reaction to the rising had a much more profound effect than the rising itself. 15 of the leaders were executed, turning public sympathy, which had been against the rebels, now massively in their favour.